Welcome to CFC Fan TV. After a pretty dismal draw against Norwich in the Cup, it all sparked in the post-match press conference, didn't it?
It did, and sadly, I don't think this is good for either manager's reputation, actually. But it's definitely.
I think it's brilliant.
You genuinely
do?
Okay,
I think
go
it's
on then.
Brilliant. I love that Antonio Conte is prepared to fight Chelsea's corner. I love him to death, and I love that he's prepared to put his neck on the line, and from what he's saying, his fists up for the club.
Which is lovely. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, that's good. We want a fire manager. We want somebody that's going to stick up for us. But at the same time, I think, and bear in mind, I do think this is all Mourinho's fault. Let's just clear that. I'm not sticking up for him anyway. But I don't think it's good to distract from actual football. That's what we want. That's what we want to watch. We don't want to be having these spats between two very popular managers. That's the way I see that.
I know it's easy to take the high ground and say that we don't want to see this kind of behaviour. I'm not adverse to it at all, really. And if I'm honest, Antonio Conte being prepared to get down and dirty, just like I am for Chelsea, just like the people watching these videos are for Chelsea, it actually inspires me. I love that we've got a manager who can finally take Mourinho on at his own game. For years, Jose Mourinho was the master of this. He was the man who would rile other managers. He'd call Arsene Wenger a voyeur. He'd call Arsene Wenger a specialist in failure. When they were in Spain together, he would always have a go at Guardiola, and nobody would really fight him. Nobody would challenge him. I think Zlatan Ibrahimovic said something to Guardiola. He said that he looks like he's terrified of Mourinho. I just love that we have a manager now who's not prepared to put up with any of Mourinho's nonsense and potentially knock him out on the sideline.
No, I think that I don't see that they're not sticking up for themselves. I just see that they're trying to take the higher ground. They're trying to not give in to what I think they see as like quite childish behaviour. To be honest, that's the way I look at it. But yeah, I do agree, and I think we'll get to the timeline of events in a minute. But I think the main part of this is that Mourinho has now said something that's really got to Conte because it's personal towards him and his family. It's something that they went through for 4 years or something like that. He had his house searched, he had all these things, and he said it wasn't really enjoyable for him or his family, and even though he was cleared of the allegations made against him for match fixing, he says that it's still something he'll always remember, as anybody would. You don't have to commit a crime to be hurt by it. You only have to be accused of something like that. But anyway, there was something else before that. Mourinho said basically that Conte was complaining about, this is how it first started, complaining about, having injured players or something like that. And Conte said that he thinks Mourinho has, dementia senile, which I think translated into amnesia, basically, that because Mourinho has done that before in all of his interviews. I'm pretty sure I've heard some.
Yeah, look, suggested, bandying about the term, like trying to make light of the term dementia is terrible. Like, my nan's got dementia, you shouldn't be doing that. But in the heat of the moment, making the point that Mourinho has a selective memory isn't a problem. It's correct and it's right. Correct. And like this all started on the touchline at Stamford Bridge. Do you remember when we beat them 4-0 when we were 1-0 up? I think Pedro scored after about a minute. But
that's embarrassing for Mourinho anyway, because let's just point. I will point it out that that game when Mourinho came back to Stamford Bridge for the first time after he got sacked, Chelsea fans did boo him, and in my eyes, if I was Mourinho, I wouldn't have expected anybody to applaud him.
It wasn't universal booing.
There was applause.
There was
some applause, but it wasn't universal booing. No, but I wouldn't have booed a manager that's given us that many trophies. So in my mind, I think that was probably the game where he thought, well, the fans have obviously turned against me, so I don't have any loyalty to this club. I don't think that's what happened. I think that. Where I was
90% of the stadium gave him, you've got to bear in mind, he's coming back as Manchester United manager. He's not coming back as an impartial person.
But that was because we sacked him.
That's not because we sacked him. Why is it because we sacked him?
No, he
got sacked from Chelsea. Chelsea didn't give him to Manchester United.
No, where else is he going to?
He chose to undermine his legacy and go to a rival.
No, where else is he going to go? Once you've been sacked by a club twice, the loyalty's gone.
What do you mean? Where else is he going to go? There's hundreds of clubs.
No, if you're thinking about your career business wise, you would go to the next best offer.
Well, it depends if you're thinking about it business wise. But Mourinho would always portray himself as being a fan, and therefore, it would be like saying to me, well, if. But
this is the second time the club's now sacked him. So in my mind, if it wasn't Mourinho's choice to go, and if he chose to leave by himself, then join Manchester United, of course, boo him all you want. I don't care at all. But I think some of the boos that day in the stadium were uncalled for, and I would have just been silent. I wouldn't have said anything. I wouldn't have applauded. I wouldn't have booed. I would have just said nothing. And maybe you couldn't hear it from my end, the shed end, there were a lot of boos.
I gave him a clap that day. A lot of people around me gave him a clap.
Oh,
like,
that's
don't get me
wrong. Well, not in the Shell End, there was nothing around there.
Not celebrating him, but he's there as Manchester United manager. There's a limit to how far you can go. But I think people would accept and acknowledge the fact that he won back-to-back Premier Leagues at Chelsea, so gave him a clap.
I mean, I don't hear anything good about him. I mean, this is even before all this load of rubbish started anyway, but I just choose to not say a good or bad word about him because of the trophies he's won us, and that's basically that. But having said that, since then, I think his bitterness or whatever he feels, anger towards the club, the fans, whoever, has gone a little bit too far. So that's where I think I've now drawn the line, and I think to bring up something like what happened with Conte, something that he was cleared for, is uncalled for. It's just not very moral. That's the way I see it. I wouldn't call it a very...
Yeah, I mean, there's no love lost between the two. He had the hump with Conte celebrating that day. He said he was humiliating him because he was celebrating with his fans, which I don't see at all. I think if anybody humiliated him that day, it was his team who were soundly beaten 4-0.
True.
They then had another clash when we knocked him out of the cup when Kante scored. And it's just a cumulative effect with Mourinho. Every time he came back, there was another issue. And it got worse and worse. And then we went up to Old Trafford and they beat us. Mm. And he had something to say that day. And it's finally come to a head.
Yeah, they are only 1 point above us. So is he trying to do this to rile us up? Is that what it is? To try and distract us from...
I think there's a problem. I think there's definitely... This is Mourinho's tactic, isn't it? He makes it a kind of backs against the wall situation. But I think what he needs to really worry about is the fact that he's won 1 Premier League title in 5.5 years. Like, he needs to be focusing on his own team, worrying about why he hasn't managed to reach the heights that he reached 10 years ago. He massively struggles these days. And like I say, 1 Premier League title in 5.5 years, not going to win the league this year. They didn't win the league last year. They spent a fortune in the summer. His priority should be how to get Manchester United back to where they always were when I was a kid.
Yeah, didn't he just say that they didn't spend enough money? I'm pretty sure that was a headline. I was like, what?
Yeah,
I was like, you spent more than enough.
Yeah, he certainly,
hundreds of millions.
Certainly said something along those lines. But yeah, it's a really annoying thing. And
Conte's now basically called him a little man.
With Mourinho, Mourinho took me to days that I never thought I'd see. He introduced me to feelings that I never thought I'd see, and he's completely sort of undermining his own legacy at Stamford Bridge with this constant barrage of abuse that he levels at the club. And Antonio Conte is a man who we adore. He's a man who's very close to my heart, and the fact that he's prepared to put 2 things up to Mourinho is something that I love.
Yeah, and I think actually, I mean, like, I don't mind a little bit of banter between managers. I don't mind a little bit of, controversy to an extent. I just think it's going past bitter now. And this is on Mourinho's part, not Conte. He's just sticking up for himself. Yeah. We're not going through this whole accent thing again. I'm sorry, guys. I'm from the West. I don't know what to say. Anyway, no, but I do think that it's just time to let it go. I think if Conte wants to do anything now, it's to solely just focus on getting us second place.
It's going to be huge, isn't it? February. When is it? February 25th, something like that, when we play Manchester United.
Yeah, and I hope that things have sort of calmed down by then, because obviously Conte has now called Mourinho a little man. A little man was the phrase he used.
Yeah.
And I don't think he...
It's like that garage song. It's like a Sia garage song.
Yeah, he doesn't mean in size. I think he means as in brains, personality. That's the way I'm looking at that.
Yeah, I think he just means the stature of the man, like the measure of the man. And it's a real shame because under normal circumstances, you never want to see this. It's two people whose names will be forever intertwined in Chelsea history. You don't really want to see them clashing. But even trying to look at it from an objective point of view, there's only one protagonist here, and there's only one person who I'm siding with, and that is Antonio Conte all the way.